Hello everybody, my name is Mason, and welcome back to Mason Zero ASMR. Thank you for joining me today with episode 2 of my Magic the Gathering Cube. If you haven't watched the previous episode, go check out going through the white cards. I'll leave a link to the previous one down below in the description. So, I kind of gave an introduction to the cube in that one, so I will just very briefly discuss the basics. So it's a 540 card cube. It's pretty budget. It has about $500 worth of cards, so nothing too crazy. And yeah, it's kind of multicolored focus, so I'll go through what blue does with all the different colors. So blue with white is focused on control and flying. So blue just kind of naturally goes with white for control. Blue's counters and draw along with white's removal and things like that. So those kind of naturally go together, but also I've built in some sort of tribal flying. There's some synergistic cards that boost flying creatures in both colors, and there are plenty of flyers in both colors, so that's what they do. Blue and black, I've been having some trouble with blue and black, and I think I've ended up making blue and black sort of artifact focused. It's more apparent in the multicolored cards that are blue and black, but yeah, that's been what I'm working on. I don't really play blue-black, and I think initially I thought I was going to do mill, and then I just ignored that and ended up doing artifacts, which maybe you'll see when we get to multicolored in a little bit in here. Blue and red was initially the artifact color combination, and some remnants of that remain. You'll notice that when we get to red. So they're sort of Grixis artifacts, which I wanted to do because there aren't a ton of pure artifacts in the cube. I try to make a lot, but there's not a ridiculous amount, so I wanted to spread that across as many colors as possible, so that it'd be easier to create those artifacts from colored cards. But really, blue-red ended up kind of being what blue-red often is, which is spells. You can see right here on top, Delver of Secrets, the spells-based card, instants and sorceries and whatnot. So blue-red has strong support for that. And then blue-green is another one that I have trouble with. I think it's just sort of ended up being sort of big stuff like ramp and creature-based, big creatures, both at the top end of blue and green, and draw and ramp along the way. I don't have any +1/+1 counter synergy really in the cube at all, but I love +1/+1 counter cards, so I'm considering exchanging a lot of things for sort of the Simic Guild +1/+1 counters thing. I have a Rishkar in green, and I think that might be a good basis to go off of, so we'll see what happens there. Anyways, time to go through the blue cards in my Magic the Gathering cube. So, first of all, like I said, we have Delver of Secrets. It's 1 blue for a 1/1 human wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If an instant or sorcery card is revealed this way, transform Delver of Secrets. So, one of those spells cards. And then it transforms into a 3/2 flying. And this is something that I was going to mention, how with my cards I try to make them as useful as possible in terms of what they synergize with. So this card synergizes both with the spells, and it also synergizes with flying. So it'll be just as at home in a blue-white deck as a blue-red deck, which I think is nice. Next we have a new card from Ixalan, definitely the first that I wanted to put in. Siren Stormtamer, 1 blue for a 1/1 Siren Pirate Wizard with flying. Pay 1 blue and sacrifice it to counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. I played with this card in my pre-release deck, and it was great playing on turn 1. It's a flyer, so we can get in early and often, and it just leaving that 1 blue mana open isn't that hard when you have something impactful on the board, and it'll just protect it. You don't mind essentially paying, I mean, you're basically paying 2 blue, basically a counter spell, for just countering something that targets you or a creature. So, very useful. Thing in the Ice, 1 and a blue for a 0/4 horror with Defender. Thing in the Ice enters the battlefield with 4 ice counters on it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, remove an ice counter from Thing in the Ice. Then, if it has no ice counters on it, transform it. And it transforms into Awoken Horror, a 7/8. When this creature transforms into Awoken Horror, return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hand. So, definitely in the spells category. And one of my favorite cards from Standard. Of course, as of filming this video, it is rotated out of Standard as Ixalan rotates in. Next we have Vidalcan Engineer, the first artifact synergy card. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Vidalcan Artificer. Tap to add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. I think that kind of says it all. It works well with the artifact synergies. Chief Engineer, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 Vidalcan Artificer. Artifact spells you cast have Convoke. Again, nice blue early drop to help with those artifacts. Makes them a lot easier to cast. There aren't too many of them, and not too many powerful ones, so I'm not too concerned about them getting out of hand, like, I don't know, having a Blightsteel Colossus on a really early turn. Like, there's no cards like that in the deck, or in the cube. Labyrinth Guardian, 1 and a blue for a 2/3 Illusion Warrior. When Labyrinth Guardian becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it. Has the Embalm for 3 and a blue. No real synergies here, just a blue card that's good for its stats and can come back if it dies. Might be an early cut, certainly, but right now I enjoy it. Stratus Dancer, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Jin Monk with flying and Megamorph for 1 and a blue. When Stratus Dancer is turned face up, counter target instant or sorcery spell. Frost Walker, 1 and a blue for a 4/1 Elemental. When Frostwalker becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Some more of that weird blue aggressive stuff that can be pretty cool attacking with that early. Phantasmal Image, 1 and a blue for a 0/0 Illusion. You may have Phantasmal Image enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an illusion in addition to its other types, and it gains when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So just a versatile blue card that can become whatever it wants. Warden of Evos Isle, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Bird Wizard with flying. Creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 generic less to cast. So going back to that flying tribal, that this is the card you want. Enables everything, makes everything cheaper. Illusory Angel, 2 and a blue for a 4/4 Angel Illusion with flying. Cast Illusory Angel only if you've cast another spell this turn. So as you can see, I enjoy blue cards that are undercosted for their stats, but then require some hoops to jump through. Not that this should be difficult. There's plenty of spells you can cast. Stormbound Geist, 1 and 2 blue for a 2/2 Spirit with flying. Stormbound Geist can block only creatures with flying, and it has Undying. So this also might be an early cut if I find a better flying 3-drop, but I like it because it comes back once. It has decent stats when it does come back. Master of Ethereum, one of the more powerful artifact cards. 2 and a blue for a star artifact creature, Vidalcan Wizard. Master of Ethereum's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts you control. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. So if you really go into the artifact theme, it's going to be a very powerful leader. Sprite Noble. 1 and 2 blue for a 2/2 creature fairy with flying. Other creatures you control with flying get +0/+1. Tap. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0 until end of turn. So it gives them a defense boost and can give them an offense boost, which is pretty useful. Another one of those cards that you want if you're in the flying theme. Surikar Spellblade. 1 and 2 blue for a 2/1 Surikar. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Surikar Spellblade. Whenever Surikar Spellblade deals combat damage to a player, you may draw X cards, where X is the number of charge counters on it. So spells, of course. Deceiver Exarch is here for the Splinter Twin combo. 2 and a blue for a 1/4 Cleric with Flash. When Deceiver Exarch enters the battlefield, choose 1, untap target permanent you control, or tap target permanent an opponent controls. Now this can be useful outside of the Splinter Twin combo as a way to tap down a blocker, or a way to untap a bounce land or something. So, still a decent card, even without the combo. Mana War, always a great control card. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Jellyfish. When Mana War enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. Whirlpool Warrior. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk, and it is a Merfolk Warrior, according to the Oracle text, which makes sense. When Whirlpool Warrior comes into play, shuffle the cards from your hand into your library, then draw that many cards. Pay a red and sacrifice Whirlpool Warrior. Each player shuffles the cards from his or her hand into his or her library, then draws that many cards. So just an interesting card that can basically redraw your hand, which can sometimes be very useful. Niblis of Frost. 2 and 2 blue for a 3/3 Spirit with flying and prowess. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So we have some flying, we have some spells, we have some control. This is one of those cards that kind of does it all. Towergeist, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Spirit with flying. When Towergeist enters the battlefield, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Fairy Artisans. 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Fairy Artificer with flying. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except with an artifact in addition to its other types. Then exile all other tokens created with Fairy Artisans. So this is fun. Lets you steal everything that your opponent plays for a turn. And it's an artifact. You have any artifact enter the battlefield synergies, which is cool. Also, you get all of their enter the battlefield synergies, or triggers. Very nice. Whirler Rogue, one of the other Artifacts Matters cards. 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2 Human Rogue Artificer. When a Whirler Rogue enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Water Servant. 2 and 2 blue for a 3/4 Elemental. Pay a blue and Water Servant gets +1/-1 until end of turn, or it gets -1/+1 until end of turn. So one of those generic, versatile blue cards that can have high power or high toughness depending on what you need. Void Mage Husher, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Human Wizard with Flash. When Void Mage Husher comes into play, counter target activated ability. Whenever you play a spell, you may return Void Mage Husher to its owner's hand. So I like this card over something like Disallow. It costs 1 mana more, but it's a creature and it's repeatable. It doesn't hit triggered abilities, it only hits activated, but I think that is, at least in the cube, a worthwhile trade for the fact that you can attack with it and you can return it to your hand to cast multiple times. So I like it a lot. Dungeon Geists, 2 and 2 blue for a 3/3 spirit with flying. When Dungeon Geists enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Dungeon Geists. Peregrine Drake, 4 and a blue for a 2/3 creature Drake with flying. When Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. I really enjoy these blue cards that untap all the lands you spent. I also have a bounce land for each color combination, which means untapping those can be a big deal. You can untap more than 5 mana with those 5 lands. So I like those cards. Those cards can be kind of broken also. Mnemonic Wall, 4 and a blue for a 0/4 wall with defender. When Mnemonic Wall enters the battlefield, you may return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So more spells, matters. Arcane Savant, and we have our first conspiracy card here. I do have a few conspiracy cards that affect the draft. Only the ones that I thought were good. So I think I only have, 4 exactly. So Arcane Savant is 3 and 2 blue for a 3/3 human wizard. Before you shuffle your deck to start the game, you may reveal this card from your deck and exile an instant or sorcery you drafted that isn't in your deck. When Arcane Savant enters the battlefield, copy a card you've exiled with cards named Arcane Savant. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Now I love this because you can just take some ridiculous off-color or even on-color spell and cast it for 5 mana and even get a 3/3 while you're at it. Now your opponent will see it coming because they know what card you exiled. They know this is in your deck, but I think it's still a very fun card. It works well with the theme of spells, and also it lets you go into a color that you're not in. Like if you're playing blue and like red or something, and you realize you don't have any enchantment removal, you could put in a white card or whatever that has enchantment removal, just in case. So could be interesting, and also it's kind of like having a sideboard because each game you can do that. You can pick a different card. Mole Drifter, 4 and a blue for a 2/2 elemental with flying. When Mole Drifter enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Evoke for 2 and a blue. So versatile, a pretty standard card for a cube. Disciple of the Ring, 3 and 2 blue for a 3/4 human wizard. Pay 1, exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and choose one of the following 4 options. Counter target non-creature spell, unless its controller pays 2. Disciple of the Ring gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Tap target creature, or untap target creature. So, very versatile card. You can use all those spells that you don't need anymore, especially for some of the cards that help dump things into your graveyard. So, it's great to just be able to use those resources. Or make something into a resource that was just graveyard stuff before. Docent of Perfection, 3 and 2 blue for a 5/4 insect horror with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. Then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform Docent of Perfection. And he turns into a 6/5 called Final Iteration. He's an Eldrazi insect with flying. Wizards you control get +2/+1 and have flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. Now this isn't supposed to be for wizard tribal, even though there are plenty of wizards in the cube, kind of incidentally. It's definitely for the spells theme. It is nice that it makes tokens and it can make them big, though. I like that. We have Icefall Regent, 3 and 2 blue for a 4/3 dragon with flying. When Icefall Regent enters the battlefield, tap target creature and opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Icefall Regent. Spells your opponents cast that target Icefall Regent cost 2 more to cast. So it's flying removal that has power and toughness, which is pretty nice. And it protects itself. Aetherling, 4 and 2 blue for a 4/5 shapeshifter with 4 abilities. Pay a blue and exile Aetherling. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Pay a blue, Aetherling is unblockable this turn. Pay 1 generic, Aetherling gets +1/-1 until end of turn, or Aetherling gets -1/+1 until end of turn. So again, one of those very versatile blue cards, can protect itself in a lot of ways and be whatever you need it to be. I like that a lot. Gives you options. Archetype of Imagination, 4 and 2 blue for a 3/2 enchantment creature, human wizard. Creatures you control have flying. Creatures your opponents control lose flying and can't have or gain flying. If you're in the Flyers deck, this is essentially just a game ender because all of your creatures are virtually unblockable, which is pretty powerful. Uyo Silent Prophet, 4 and 2 blue for a 4/4 legendary creature moonfolk wizard with flying. Pay 2 generic and return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And last 2 creatures. Got the big blue guys. Scab Goliath, 5 and a blue for a 6/9 zombie giant. As an additional cost to cast Scab Goliath, exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard, and it has trample. So just a big boy. And our last creature is Gearseeker Serpent, 5 and 2 blue for a 5/6 serpent. Gearseeker Serpent costs 1 generic less to cast for each artifact you control. 5 and a blue, Gearseeker Serpent can't be blocked this turn. So obviously synergizes with the artifact theme. Next we have our instants, starting with Rapid Hybridization. 1 blue, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. That creature's controller puts a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token onto the battlefield. It's blue removal. Force Spike, 1 blue, counter target spell unless its caster pays an additional 1 generic. Quicken, 1 blue for the next sorcery card you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash. Draw a card. So it's kind of a do nothing, but at least it replaces itself. And for Spells Matters decks, it's another spell. Select for inspection, 1 blue, return target tapped creature to its owner's hand, scry 1. Mana Leak, 1 and a blue, counter target spell, unless its controller pays 3. Cyclonic Rift, 1 and a blue, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Overload for 6 and a blue. So, very good card to have, especially if you can pay for its overload cost and just blow out your opponent. It's very effective. Snap, 1 and a blue, return target creature to its owner's hand, untap up to 2 lands. Tolarian Winds, 1 and a blue, discard your hand, then draw that many cards. Helps put things in the graveyard for things like Disciple of the Ring. Into the Royal, 1 and a blue, kicker for 1 and a blue, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If Into the Royal was kicked, draw a card. So as you can see, our instant package is very much control, counter spells, bounce spells, draw spells. Memory Lapse, 1 and a blue, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. Anticipate, 1 and a blue, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Classic counter spell, 2 blue, counter target spell. Simple and effective. Impulse, 1 and a blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's just better anticipate. You can dig one deeper. Essence Scatter, 1 and a blue, counter target creature spell. Cackling Counterpart, 1 and 2 blue, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, flashback for 5 and 2 blue. Always gotta love repeatable effects like that. Grip of Phyresis, 2 and a blue, gain control of target equipment, then create a 0/0 black germ creature token and attach that equipment to it. I love the idea of this card. Unfortunately, I've removed a lot of the equipment from my cube. There's still some, but it'll require some more testing to figure out if it is, if it's worth it or not to keep it in. Forbidden Alchemy, 2 and a blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Flashback for 6 and a black. Aetherize, 3 and a blue. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Summoner's Bane, 2 and 2 blue. Counter target creature spell. Put a 2/2 blue illusion creature token onto the battlefield. Rewind, 2 and 2 blue. Counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. Insidious Will, 2 and 2 blue. Choose 1. Counter target spell. You may choose new targets for target spell. Copy target instant or sorcery spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So another versatile counter spell. As you can see, a lot of these are counter and draw and filter and things like that. Now we're moving on to our sorceries. We start off with Serum Visions, 1 blue, draw a card, scry 2. Index, 1 blue, look at the top 5 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. New from Ixalan, Chart a Course, a card I was very excited to put in because it's very good. 1 and a blue, draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attacked with a creature this turn. In cube, you're probably going to be attacking, so it's almost always a cheaper divination, which is great. Exhaustion, 2 and a blue. Creatures and lands target opponent controls do not untap during his or her next untap phase. You're literally just time walking them, which is fantastic. Devastation Tide, 3 and 2 blue. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. Miracle for 1 of the blue. Baral's Expertise, 3 and 2 blue. Return up to 3 target artifacts and or creatures to their owner's hands. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Free spells are always good. Of course, we have to have Treasure Cruise, payoff for filling up your graveyard with cards. 7 and a blue with Delve, and draw 3 cards. Now we have our enchantments, which we have a few of in blue. Sigil of Sleep, 1 blue, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. Cartouche of Knowledge, 1 and a blue for an aura cartouche, enchant creature you control. When Cartouche of Knowledge enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. It's more of that flying synergy. And Soul Artifact, 1 and a blue for an aura, enchant artifact. Enchanted artifact is a creature with base power and toughness 5/5 in addition to its other types. So it works well with spells like Ornithopter and things like that. Of course, it's a powerful card if you have the right other cards to go with it. Ordeal of Thassa, 1 and a blue for an aura, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then, if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, sacrifice Ordeal of Thassa. When you sacrifice Ordeal of Thassa, draw 2 cards. Riddle Form, 1 and a blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may have Riddle Form become a 3/3 Sphinx creature with flying, in addition to its other types until end of turn. Pay 2 and a blue to scry 1. So there's that non-creature spell synergy, there's that flying synergy. It's a pretty fun card. And it's hard to remove when it's just an enchantment. Thopter Spy Network, 2 and 2 blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, put a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Can be powerful if left alone for too long. And we have an old school revised control magic, 2 and 2 blue for an enchant creature with probably awkward wording in the text box. You control target creature until enchantment is discarded or game ends. If target creature is already tapped, it stays tapped until you can untap it. If destroyed, target creature is put in its owner's graveyard, which basically just says gain control of target creature. That's all it really says. Or, no, it says you control enchanted creature. That's what it says. So, yeah, a bit wordy. They over-explained things in the past. Gravitational Shift, 3 and 2 blue. Creatures with flying get +2/+0. Creatures without flying get -2/-0. So, a big high-end payoff card for flying. And our Planeswalker is Jace, Architect of Thought. 2 and 2 blue for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker Jace. +1. Until your next turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. -2. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one pile into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library in any order. -8. For each player, search that player's library for a non-land card and exile it. Then, that player shuffles his or her library. You may cast those cards without paying their mana costs. Anyways, that is our blue section. As you can see, there's a lot of quintessential blue control. Some controlling creatures, controlling spells, lots of flying cards to really sail over the top. And hopefully a lot of fun spells. As always, if you have any suggestions for blue, let me know, especially in terms of the +1/+1 counters, what you would take out to put in +1/+1 counter synergistic cards. I am excited to see what you have to say. Thank you for joining me for another long video rambling about Magic. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment. If you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe. And as in my last video, the link to the cube on CubeTutor will be in the description, so you can take a look at it yourself and even draft it yourself. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I hope you are nice and relaxed or asleep. Good night.